All right, everybody, welcome back. Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well. And this is going to be tricky as well for the kind of the opposite reason that Torrey Horton was hard. A couple days ago, I did my Torrey Horton film video, and I only did one game because Colorado State does not have a lot of their cut-ups or full game clips or really much of anything out there. And the little bit that is out there is a lot from 2024, which didn't have a lot of Torrey Horton because he got hurt. So, not the problem this time. The issue with Robbie Ouzts is not the lack of games available because most Alabama games are available all over the place. The issue with Robbie Ouzts is that he almost never gets the ball in his hands. And when he plays, for the most part, he plays tight end. He plays in line or even lined up outside as a slot receiver. And that's just not that useful. I didn't really want to spend a lot of time looking at that. So I found one game in the last 2 years, the only game that I could find where he played at least 10 snaps in the backfield as a fullback. So I decided to look at this game, and I didn't really look at anything else because all these other games he's playing like 1 or 2 snaps as a fullback, and everything else he's just a normal tight end, and I don't think that's going to be very useful for us. Like, it's not even like looking at a receiver. Like, if you have a receiver that plays on the outside in college, but you know is going to have to move to the slot in the NFL, I think you can watch him playing outside and still learn a lot. I don't feel like we're going to learn that much watching this guy play inline. Maybe a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I think that you're kind of putting a spotlight on his weaknesses if you put him there. So I'm just going to look at this one game and call it good. Before I get started, please like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to support the channel. Okay, so he played 33 snaps in this game, which was at home against Arkansas in 2023. This was the last time he played at least 10 snaps in a game at fullback. I think every game last year, 2024, he played either 0, 1, or 2 snaps in the backfield. That's it. So I wanted to go back to something that would have a little bit more substance, and this was the best I could do. So going through my notes here, first snap of the game for Alabama's offense, he lines up in the slot. So even in a game like this, you're still seeing him line up as a receiver. Very early in the first, he runs a very plodding 5-yard curl on a running play. You can see that he's not necessarily a poor route runner, but things do happen very slowly with him. So right away, you're like, okay, I think I know what the story is here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that Alabama is almost entirely a shotgun team. So when he's lined up in fullback, he's still in front of the quarterback. It's like he'll be in the shotgun, running back will be to his side, and a fullback will be to his other side, but a step in front of him. So there's not a lot of like I formation stuff. And in this offense, he will probably be a fullback in I formation a decent amount. We know Kubiak likes under center, and we also know that Kubiak likes fullbacks. So it's still not a one-to-one. He picks up a blitzing linebacker on this play, but he gets too far inside, and he barely manages to recover just enough to prevent the sack, but Milroe gets flushed out of the pocket because of it. Near as I could tell, he just overset to the inside. It just kind of looks sloppy to me. So he's just coming up from that fullback position to pick up a blitzing linebacker. Looks like a pretty routine play, and he sets up inside for a reason that I'm not really quite sure what it is. About a minute later, he lines up in line. He double teams the edge rusher on a draw and does a pretty good job staying engaged, at least. Now it's a double team on an edge rusher, so it's not the hardest thing in the world to do, but I thought he did a pretty good job keeping engaged and allowing the run to go somewhere. 30 seconds later, he runs a seam route from offset in line. Quarterback never looks at him. I don't think Milroe looked at him once the whole game when he was running a route. So it's just not his game, and that's fine. We get to the second quarter now. Early in the second, he's in line 2 steps off the line of scrimmage. He's basically a fullback, but I think technically he's wide enough to be considered inline. So he starts on the right side and he loops to the left side to lead block for a draw. And he does whiff on the block. Like, this was actually an example of a block I was hoping he would hit, and he didn't. He just whiffed. But he did manage to get in the way enough to technically clear the way. But this was an opportunity for him to impress me, and it didn't happen. So 14:08 in the second quarter. Didn't feel like he threw a good block, but he did barely get in the way. 30 seconds later, he's in line. He runs to the flat after a chip on the edge. He's left open. Quarterback never looks at him. Next play, he's in line. He blocks the edge 1v1 on a draw. And the block starts good. Like, he gets engaged on him quickly and it looks fine. And then he just gets shed almost instantly. And that's kind of the big thing I'm talking about, right? His arm length is so short, he can't stay engaged with these guys. He gets shed too easily. That's why he can't play in line. A little bit later, I think the very next play, he's in line, runs a shallow crosser, and he got a step on his man. He wasn't open, but he was open, and Milroe got sacked before he really had a chance to even consider throwing to him anyway. A few minutes later, 10 minutes in the second quarter, he's in line in jumbo, and I thought he did a good job squaring up a block on a rare under center run. He did a good job clearing out the hole. And I think that he threw maybe not the key block, but a key block to pave way for a first down in the red zone. So, good job. And that's in line, by the way. Next play, he's in line again. He comes back across to lead block. So, even though he lines up in line, he's acting as a fullback here. Comes back from, I think, right to left to lead block. And he does a good job, but the running back takes the other hole anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. And then next play, or maybe it was 2 plays later, he assists with a tush push at the goal line. He's one of the guys pushing Milroe from the back. So, hey, maybe we can have tush pushes in a year or two. That could be fun. Just in time for it to get banned from the league, of course. But, yeah, he pushes Milroe into the end zone. It works. Touchdown, Crimson Tide. And that was it for the first half. So, as you can see, he's active, he's doing stuff, but there isn't necessarily a lot to talk about. We're already in the second half here. 15 minutes left in the third quarter, so first play of the third. Motions to inline from wide, or slot, rather. And he runs a simple 5-yard curl, gets open, quarterback throws it elsewhere, whatever. Again, he's mostly just running these routes to be a distraction. Next play, he's a fullback, lead block for draw, combo blocks a lineman, helps his offensive lineman get push on a tackle. So this was a nice little play. You see him go into a guy, converting speed to power and getting push. Good to see. I like it. Next play, another fullback lead. So we're seeing a lot more fullback stuff on this drive in particular. He picks up a defensive lineman who had beaten his offensive lineman. He had just quickly shed his offensive lineman, and Ouzts came up and just put a hat on a hat and was able to open up a little bit of a hole for the running back. This play was probably going to be blown up, and because of Ouzts, it wasn't. So this was a great play. Great example of him understanding the assignment as a fullback. Next play, he chips on a defensive tackle to effectively assist in pass protection for a shot play. So this was another good rep as well. You can see the pass protection ability. Again, he's lined up in a fullback spot where he's able to kind of really see what's going on in front of him and have good vision of the play. So this was a nice little rep. This next one was just weird, though. Very next play, right to left lead block for a run. So he's lined up as fullback and he goes right to left to lead block. And he it looks like he's just perfectly set up to block a linebacker in the hole or the edge, and he just runs past him. It's just this complete whiff, and I have to believe it was intentional, but I don't know why, because the edge just goes and helps disrupt the play. I feel like he meant to do it, but I don't know why. So I'm just going to scratch my head on that one and move on. A couple minutes later, another fullback rep, lead block for a draw play. Offensive line blocks this play up so well, he's got no one to pick up, so he just kind of runs through the hole and looks around, and nothing's going on. Next play, though, 34 seconds later, he's fullback, Beautiful lead block. Smacks the linebacker head on to open big lane. That's the kind of stuff that we're going to want to see from him in the pros. He just goes through the hole. He finds the linebacker that's there to fill the run gap, and he just lowers the boom and opens up the hole. Next play, seals off the edge from inline, helps open up a big hole. Running back takes a different one, though, but I did think it was a good block, and this was from inline as well, so something to be said there. Next play, fullback lead block again, chips on the defensive tackle, helps out one of the offensive linemen. It might have been Tyler Booker on the tackle to get some movement and push, so good rep. A couple minutes later, he's in line. He picks up the edge rusher 1v1 on a play action, and it looked like he actually had good control of the edge rusher, which is not, I mean, that's not nothing, right? That's a legitimate edge rusher, and he's blocking him. And Milroe rolls out towards the edge rusher, so the edge rusher is able to affect the play, but it's on Milroe. It's not on Ouzts, I don't think. And next play after that, he motions from the slot into a lead block to seal the edge, and it's a big, firm hit. It's another great example of what Ouzts can do in the best scenario in the NFL, where he plays in space, gets an opportunity to build up a head of steam into his block, and he just lowers the boom. So, great play. Big, firm hit. Last play of the third quarter, he's in line. He fakes inside, and then he lead blocks for a pitch play, and he laid a nice pancake on a linebacker. Another great example of what we're talking about here. Get him in space, let him block guys firmly after being able to get a head of steam, and you've got something. I think putting him in line and not letting him build up that head of steam is going to limit what he can do. And this play was a great example of what I'm hoping to see in the NFL with him, so it was good to see it here. All right, now we're in the fourth quarter. Motions to help protect for pass. It was one of those plays where he just kind of anchors down between the tackle and guard and waits for something to happen. And he totally didn't notice the left tackle getting beat on the edge. It's actually kind of a weird looking play. Like the left tackle's getting roasted by the edge rusher. And Ouzts is just standing there and he has no idea that it's happening. And behind him, Milroe's getting sacked and he's just kind of standing there. Obviously, he anticipated having to make a pickup on the inside, but it's just a goofy looking play. A few minutes later, he lead blocks for a draw play, takes the outside linebacker, lands another good squared up hit on him, helps clear the way. 5:19 left in the fourth quarter now, so we're close to the end here. He helps double an edge rusher for a draw play from inline, and he loses his sustain quickly. And losing sustain does end up killing the play quickly. So it's another example of just him having a really hard time sustaining. Like, you try to put him in these mano-a-mano situations, and over again, I just feel like he's going to engage well, and then he's going to lose his sustain. That's why you allow him to just kind of lower his shoulder and lower the boom on somebody instead. A couple minutes later, he's a fullback again, whiffs badly on a lead block on a linebacker. Running back picks a different hole. Not a good rep here. He had space to build up steam, and he just whiffed. Next play, though, he's a lead block again. He does a decent job throwing an angle block on a linebacker to firm up a hole, but I think his angle was just a little bit off. His positioning was a little bit off, and he allowed the linebacker to get into the play. He took a little bit too aggressive of an angle, I think. And then near the end of the game here, this is actually, I think, the last meaningful play of the game, 1:37 left. He's in line, and he actually helps set the edge for a game-sealing first down run. Shows some power here, actually manages to really knock his man back and clear the way for a 3rd and 2 conversion that ends the game. And that was the tape on this game. It's the only game I really studied like this because, again, it was a rare example of a game where he really got to play fullback, and that's what I cared about, and I think that's what this team cares about too. And most of what I saw was good. There is some sign, there's reason to believe that he's going to need some practice here, but I think that this guy can be a bit of a weapon when you get him on the move. All right, I'm out of here. Go Hawks. Maybe another video later today. More stuff coming tomorrow. See you on Twitch later tonight, probably. Go Hawks.